Welcome, Bronco Nation. My review of the Boise State versus New Mexico game. What a way for Boise State to come out on senior night on the blue and end the regular season home schedule in style. Of course, Boise State, one more major matchup here on the horizon that could be for a lot of could be playing for a lot here, and I'm going to address that at the end of my video where I'm going through my 3 keys to the game, because that's going to encompass part of that. So this video is going to go through, as always, offense, defense, special teams, give a grade to how each of those units performed, overall review of the game, and then I'm going to go through how Boise State performed against my 3 keys to the game. And part of that review, I'm also going to look at what is Boise State's path to a Mountain West Championship. What is the path to the Mountain West Championship for the Mountain Division period? I'll also go through what Air Force and Utah State are also looking at there. So that's towards the end of my video. If you're just here for that, you can fast forward to the end there. But stick around because it's going to be good stuff. Main point here is Boise State finally got a shutout on the blue. First time that they have had a shutout here, at not just at home, but period. First time that they've had a shutout since 2015. Last time Boise had a shutout was October 3rd versus Hawaii. That game 55-0 at home on the blue. But it's been 6 years since Boise State has managed to get a shutout period, and it was an amazing performance for the defense today. Just an incredible effort. Incredible effort. Came out strong at the beginning and just played hot the entire time. Defense and special teams for me are the heroes of this game. They are going to earn the top marks in my review. Offense, we'll talk about them. It wasn't it wasn't a terrible performance because it didn't lose Boise State the game or anything like that, and they were able to get on the board. But obviously not what fans were looking for as far as the offensive explosion that they maybe expected against a weak New Mexico defense. But overall, great team performance. Boise State going into San Diego State with rested starters, secondary and third string players that were able to come in and get experience late in this one. I mean, the second string basically played the entire fourth quarter, which is great. That's definitely a win. And then a big momentum building win here, even if it's not, the 50, 60-point spreads that we might be expected to from past Boise State seasons. A 37-0 victory is always a big win, especially at senior night, especially at home, especially when you can get a big old goose egg there for the opposing scoreboard. So let's get right into it then. This was a great game. Just a lot of momentum. Not shifts, actually. It was just all Boise State. But special teams and defense bring their A game, and because of that, I'm going to kind of shift things a little bit this time. Usually I would start with the offense and then go defense, special teams. I'm actually going to start with the defense, special teams, and conclude with the offense before going 3 keys to the game. So defense, how did this one start? Well, it started with an incredible senior to senior back-to-back plays, because Riley Wimpy forced a punt with a great third down stop on the quarterback. If Riley Wimpy hadn't stopped him, that quarterback might have been able to run for a first down, but he came down for his linebacker position and absolutely slammed him to the ground. So Riley Wimpy, the senior there, able to get this quarterback down, forced a punt. Well, on the ensuing punt, Kaniho comes in and blocks it, and senior Jones is able to grab it and return it for a touchdown. So it was back-to-back incredible performances by 3 seniors, and that is how you want to start off senior night on the blue. An incredible performance, and it didn't stop there. It was all game long. New Mexico on offense was only able to put up 94 yards of total offense. Boise State has had a lot of games this season where teams have put up over 150 yards rushing, 200-yard rushing performances against the Broncos. And against a team that is option-based, they switched the offense a few games ago, but it's traditionally run the offense prior to that. They were trying something out the last couple seasons, but they, with an injured quarterback, they switched back to the offense, back to the option. So with an option offense that was a run-oriented option, run-oriented offense, which is something that Boise State has struggled against traditionally. I mean, prior to this coaching staff, Boise State struggled against it. Air Force got a bunch of wins against Boise State in the Brian Harsin era because Boise State just couldn't figure out how to stop that option. And even when Boise State would win, that option offense would still usually put up a lot of yards. And we saw that this year, Boise State losing against the option offense, struggling in the first half to figure it out, working things out in the second half. At that point, they were too worn down. The inside run game with the fullback basically plowed the rest of the way that game. But this time, against a similar option concept. Of course, not run to the same level of perfection, not run with the same level of players because it's New Mexico, but still, usually, I mean, New Mexico has had some games where they put up, what was that one game with Grant Hendrick where they put up like 600 yards or something against them? It was just back and forth and back and forth. I mean, it doesn't matter. Traditionally, Boise State doesn't matter if they're playing an FCS team. If that team is running the option, Boise State's going to struggle against it. Well, this coaching staff showed their true potential, their ability to adapt, their ability to install their vision into their players, and the fact that they were able to hold New Mexico here to under 94 yards of total offense, 76 total rushing yards. A team that averages 126 yards per game, so not a ton of rushing yards, but still over 120 yards per game, held to 76 rushing yards. And it wasn't for lack of trying. 41 attempts on the ground by New Mexico, 76 yards rushing, 1.9 yards per carry. Boise State, it was incredible assignment football. And what I mean by assignment football is that's how you stop the option. Every single guy has a person that on the other team that they're going out and they're hitting every single play. So you have one guy assigned to the quarterback, you have one guy assigned to the fullback, you have one guy assigned to the pitchman, and then they might even have multiple pitchmen. You have all of them covered, and every single play, like bowling pins, every single guy should be going down. It doesn't matter if the ball's going somewhere else, you go and hit the guy that you were assigned to, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to stop it. Because you're not going to be able to react quickly enough against the option to be able to get outside and stop it if they're trying to do the pitch, or if they're trying to keep fake the pitch and keep it with the quarterback. That quarterback should be on his butt every single play, and that's what we saw. Whether he was carrying it or pitching it out, the quarterback was on the ground every single snap. And Boise State was doing an incredible job of stopping the dive. So the D-line up front has just had a complete reversal from the beginning of the season to now. The last few games had an incredible performance against the run. So great job up front. But Boise State was smashing their way through the blocks on the outside to get to the pitchman. There were a couple of, breaks here by Nevada, 14 yards here, 14 yards there. Sorry, by New Mexico, 14 yards here, 14 yards there. But overall, throughout the game, no consistency. Boise State was able to absolutely destroy that option concept and had someone in the backfield on pretty much every single play. And like I said, you saw the New Mexico quarterback going down every single time. I am confident that if Boise State was to play Air Force today, they would win that game. Because, yes, New Mexico is not the same caliber players that Air Force has. But it's not about the caliber of players. It's about understanding your assignments. And in that game against Air Force, at least in the first half, Boise State did not seem to understand their assignments. And they weren't playing to their assignment. They weren't playing their specific portion of the field. Trust the other players on your defense to cover their sections, and you go and hit your guy. They weren't doing that. Well, this game they were. And I have confidence that this coaching staff has, in this brief and very short period of time, because they didn't play Air Force that long ago, in this very brief and short period of time, has figured out this option deep offense. And I am confident moving forward that Boise State is not going to have it's not going to take them as long as the last coaching staff did to adapt to that option concept. So that is what I mean by when I say that the future is incredibly bright for this Boise State program. When I say that I think that this Boise State coaching staff can get Boise back to being the same level of team from those 2009 era, the 2009-2010 era Broncos that were in the top 5, because even though this coaching staff is very green and very fresh coming in here, adapting to this level of football, they have the skills, they have the mindset, they have the abilities, they just have to adapt to this new level of play. And what we're seeing these last 5 games is a glimpse of what the future holds for this Boise State program. This is the future for Boise State. They are going to be that defense that comes out and strikes quickly right off the bat. That is a team concept that you can't necessarily look at any one guy because every single player on the defense is making plays. Where they come out hot and they play strong and you're able to build your team around them. They're going to be an offense that is incredibly creative and explosive. And they're going to be a special teams that is the rock that Boise State stands on, that is that hammer that brings it every single play, that has players that you had your elite players wanting to be on that unit because that's where the pride is built. Boise State is showing that they're able to develop that mindset, and once you've developed that mindset, anything is possible for this Boise State program, and that's what we're seeing. Just looking at the specifically defensive performance today, like I said, amazing assignment football combined with incredible physicality. I mean, there was one play where Kaniho got blown up coming up the outside, got blown up by the lineman, basically flipped over and still made the tackle. It was incredible. I mean, he basically was flipped over, landed on his feet, or kind of on his knees, and then from the ground came back up and stopped the pitch out on the wide receiver, the running back, whoever was getting the pitch out on that. I mean, it was an incredible play, and that was the aggression that Boise State was playing with the entire game. They were slamming players on every single snap. I don't have the tackle numbers and the sack numbers because ESPN is really slow to update those, and I couldn't wait any longer before making the video. But Boise State had that quarterback on or tackles for loss on the running backs on the ground 9 times out of 10. It was an incredible physical performance here. Like I said, Wimpy, great game overall. Started off with that third down stop. Skinner had a fumble recovery and an interception. Skinner had a great game today, playing to the whistle. That's another thing I have here. Assignment, football, physicality, playing to the whistle. Playing to the whistle there. Most people would have thought it was an incomplete pass. And right there towards the end of the half, looked like an incomplete pass. No whistles blown. Skinner picks it up, runs it back. Turns out that it was a fumble. Boise State gets the ball back, and then their offense is finally able to score there right before the end of the half. And that comes from that different mindset where you are going 100% until that whistle blows. From whistle to whistle, you are giving it 110%, and that's the mindset Andy Avalos is installing on this defense. Kaniho fighting through that incredible block. 3 and outs. Boise State forced, out of the 12 drives that New Mexico had, they forced 3 and outs or less, because one of those, there was a turnover, 3 and outs or less on 6 out of 12. 50% of the drives that New Mexico had were 3 and outs or less. Just an incredible across-the-board shutdown performance. One of the most dominant defensive performances I have seen from Boise State this season. Like I said, it might be one of the most dominant defensive performances we've seen in 6 years, because they have not had a shutout in 6 years, and they got one today. So great job in the first half. Second half, it came out maybe a little slower, maybe not the same level of aggression that they did, but they established it again, and they didn't allow, and biggest picture here, they didn't allow New Mexico to score at all in that second half. And it's not like the yards were huge in the second half, or that they let the game get away from them. They were still dominant, they were still aggressive, they were still playing great assignment football. Even when their second and third string guys came in, you were still seeing the same things happen. Dive man was getting hit, the quarterback was getting hit, and the pitch was covered, even with the second and third string players. You know what that tells me is that it doesn't matter if the seniors are moving on and it's the freshmen out there. It doesn't matter if it's the water boys out there, because at that point, if all of the players are doing it, then it falls on the coaching staff. If all the players are doing what they're supposed to, it means that you are coaching your players correctly in practice, that you are putting them through the right drills to get them prepared, and that's where a coaching staff wins it on the field on game day, especially on defense. I mean, the defense, how you adapt and what coverage you calls and what adaptations you make in that coverage, that has an impact on the field. But the biggest impactor that I think on defense happens on the training field, when you develop that awareness, when you get your players to buy into the scheme that you're trying to run, that's where you build that mindset, is on the training field, and we saw that today. So it doesn't matter that Boise State's probably going to lose a bunch of great defenders. I mean, Kaniho, he's gone after this season. Jones is, I'm pretty sure that he has exhausted. I mean, he might have one more eligibility, but he's probably gone. That Boise State has a lot of players that are seniors here across this whole team, but especially on defense. I mean, if we just look through this defense here, Shane Irwin, senior, Iwane, senior, Matlock is junior, so he'd probably be back. Noah, senior, Wimpy, senior, Kaniho, senior, Jones, senior. So there's going to be a lot of players here that might get the option to come back if they want to, depending on where they were on that eligibility. But the main point here is that it doesn't matter, because Boise State's going to be just fine. That's what I love about senior night games. Senior night games give you a chance to reflect on what your team has done over the last 4 or so years, but it also gives you a chance to reflect on the future. because it gives you a glimpse into that future, because you're not, obviously the seniors aren't going to be making all the plays all night. So the new faces, the guys who are going to be taking over, you get to see them perform as well, and that gives you hope and a glimpse of what that team is going to be doing in the future, and that future is incredibly bright, because guess what? We might be losing senior Kaniho, but his freshman brother is playing great. Boise State might be losing some corners potentially here. Actually, well, they actually should have a lot of corners coming back, but they might lose some defenders here in the secondary. But they have some great step-up guys. Tubner scored or blocked a punt today. So Boise State is going to be just fine, and mostly because of this coaching staff that is proving that they have what it takes to develop players, to develop these young men into their vision and adapt those players to the scheme that they want to create and that they want to run, and they're doing an incredible job of it. So let's see. Yeah, assignments, football, physicality, playing to the whistle, and just a huge turnaround from the Air Force game. Like, obviously, quality of the New Mexico players, quality of the Air Force players. I mean, there's not even a comparison. But the fact that Boise State was able to play to their assignments and there was never any confusion. Boise State had it down every single play. That is what, New Mexico got lucky on a couple ones to be able to break some tackles and that kind of thing, but it wasn't because they were able to break the scheme. I think I remember one play where the pitchman was actually open, and was able to break loose for a few, and because there wasn't somebody back there. The one play was really all that I saw the entire game. Boise State had it locked down, and that is why this defense is getting an A+ for their performance today. Leads us into special teams here. Special teams is going to get a very rare, and I haven't given out any of these this season, but it is well deserved, an A++. What an incredible performance for the special teams. Boise State's offense only scores twice, but Boise State wins it 37-0. A big part of that is two touchdowns by the special teams on 2 blocked punts. It looked like the Avery Williams days back there. It was incredible, and it wasn't the same players every time. It was just something that the defensive coordinator here, that Spencer Daniels, had noted. He'd found a hole in this coverage unit, and like the announcer said, New Mexico hasn't given up a blocked punt all season, so this isn't like a trend that is an issue with this program. So Boise State was able to diagnose an issue, or was able to see something on tape, and that caused. Sorry, I said Spencer Daniels. He's not the special teams coach, and I'm drawing a complete blank on who the special teams coach is right now. Kent Riddle? I'm sorry about that. Defensive coordinators. And I'm sorry, I am drawing a complete blank on who the special teams coach is. Anyhow, the main point here is that the coaching staff was able to highlight an issue. A young coaching staff was able to find an issue, highlight an issue, and then exploit that issue on game day. And that's what I'm talking about when this is one of the most, I'm going to say it right now, this is one of the most raw talents, at the level of raw talent, one of the most talented coaching staffs that I've seen, top to bottom, for Boise State, maybe, since Chris Peterson days, at least. This is an incredible coaching staff. Give them a couple of years here to get some awareness, to get some experience at this level of play, and they are going to be completely unstoppable. Fingers crossed Boise State, knock on wood, whatever we do, fingers crossed Boise State can hold on to all of them, because that's going to be a big issue. A lot of these guys, if they keep performing this way, are going to start getting some good offers, and good on them for that. But if Boise State can hold this staff together, there's no ceiling on this Broncos program and what they can achieve, especially with potential of it's being reported that there's the thing about a 12-team playoff is much more being strongly considered. I haven't seen any definite proposals or reports on that. I know Bleacher Report had an article out on it, but the main fact is that we're likely to go to a 12-team playoff at some point, and the coaching staff with this level of talent can get Boise State to being in one of those teams that is in contention for that. A little bit of a sidetrack there. Main point here, special teams, incredible performance, A++, 2 touchdowns off of blocked punts, and they weren't just going and covering them up. They were trying to score. I love seeing that energy. Like I said, Canillo on the first one, and then Jones picking it up for the return for a touchdown, and Tubner on the block for the second one, and then Herberg, the D-end, who's only had, I think he's only had 3 tackles or 4 tackles this season. Herberg returns it for a touchdown. So great performance all around. First one, purely across the board seniors. Next one, Tarbner and Herberg, who are going to be here next year. So that's what I was saying. Boise State's future is bright. You got to see some players, some of part of now Boise State's history going out and performing for this program, and you also got to see the future performing this program. That's what's so incredible about today's matchup. So great job on the punt blocks there. Dalmes, 3 out of 3 on kicks. Again, it sucks a little bit that we're having to use him as much as we are this season. Of course, Boise State fans would rather see touchdowns and field goals any day, but when your team can't get it into the end zone, I've said it before, but what a relief it is to have a kicker as good as Dalmas. He has now hit 17 field goals in a row, which I believe ties him. I don't think he's taken it yet, but I believe ties him for the school record, at least in a season. So that is incredible. 17 field goals in a row now, which I believe, like I said, I believe is tied for the school record there. There's even been some suggestions, I know Mike Prater was saying this, that he could go pro. I'm going to put a halt on that. I don't think that there is any way that he is considering that or would consider that right now. I know from personal sources that Dalmes' goal here is to be the greatest kicker in Boise State history. So until he's broken every record and established himself in those history books, of course he's had a great 2 years. The first year, COVID year, doesn't really count. And this season is really his first one coming out and being a kicker that people are noticing. I don't think that that would be a good decision for him at this point, because like I said, it's the first. He's just now starting to get attention, so he comes back into next year. He's going to be getting that Kicker of the Year or preseason Mountain West Kicker of the Year attention. He's going to be getting on those award boards. That's the time when you maybe start thinking about that. But from his personality and from what his personal goals are there to be the greatest kicker in Boise State history, I don't think Boise State has to worry about losing him until he's at least knocked off every single record for field goals that is out there for Boise State. But nope, like I said, you like to think about the future. I don't want to think that far ahead in the future. The main point here is that Boise State has an incredible kicker who, while he may not have knocked off all those records or maybe isn't in his own eyes achieved that goal yet, I think he is the greatest kicker in Boise State history. Just an incredible job today. 27-yard field goal, 46-yard field goal, long field goal. He had the distance, barely got it inside that right upright. So that was a little bit of, kind of hold your breath for a second there, but he got that field goal. You should never hold your breath with Dalmas because he's going to get it in, even if he plays with you a little bit there. But 27-yard field goal, 46-yarder, and a 42-yard field goal to end his night with 3 out of 3. Another incredible performance. Add that to the 2 blocked punts for touchdowns. Khalil Shakir also had a very nice punt return on 20 yards. Really, it was a punt that probably you would say, most people would probably just fair catch it because there was a defender right in his face, and the defender must have been no further than 6 yards away from him when he caught that punt. I mean, right in his face. Does a juke move on him right away, and then just basically creates it for a 20-yard return. There really wasn't a return set up along that path. He just broke a bunch of tackles and made some great juke moves to get that 20-yard return. Set up Boise State in New Mexico territory there. So a great return by Shakir. No terrible things happening by the special teams unit today. No bad coverages, and Velasquez only averaged 39.7 yards per punt, but he was punting from close range a lot of times. So 2 punts inside of the 20 and a long of 51. Overall, what I would classify as a flawless execution by the special teams unit in their impact on the game and what they were able to perform today. So A++ effort by the special teams. So we're getting into the offense here. Like I said, I wanted to go defense and special teams first because those really were the highlights of this game, and I wanted to get the true positives out of the way first and highlight the great performance Boise State had. The offense, what happened with this offense, and they are going to get a C+ grade today because on 10 drives, they were only able to get 2 touchdowns, and they were 3 of 11 on third downs, and the offense really looked pretty stagnant today. I mean, Bachmeier only attempted 22 passes, 11 of 22, which is really low for his average. And even though he's pulled in the fourth, just at the tail edge there of the start of the fourth quarter, it was still low for his average. Very focused on the run today. So 427 yards of total offense, which is good. Only 188 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The big one here, and this is what I was just about to talk about, 239 yards rushing and 1 touchdown by Sears. So what it looked like today is that Boise State got off to such a hot start with their defense completely shutting New Mexico down. It was clear that New Mexico was not going to be a threat offensively, and then they scored those. They weren't back to back, but they scored those blocked punt in for touchdowns and got off to a quick 17-0 lead. It was pretty obvious early that Boise State wasn't going to have to pull out all the stops to win this one. So Tim Plow's smart. He knows that the San Diego State game is around the corner. So he doesn't want to reveal too much in this game. Like I said in my preview video, it's hard to cover up your playbook from an opponent this late in the season because they've seen everything already. But at the same time, you don't want to necessarily give them fresh tape to look at the game before you're going to play them. Keep some things inside your pocket. Maybe keep some plays that you've been saving for, to dust off for that special occasion. You want to save those for that game. So I think that was a factor too. But also when Boise State got off to a hot start like that, and this being a lower tier opponent, it's true. I mean, the Mountain West is a tough conference, but New Mexico is not a tough team. They're 3-8 now, they were 3-7 I think coming into this matchup, so I think they're 3-8 now. So this was a team that I think Tim Plow saw as an opportunity to try and A, not show too much for the game against San Diego State, and B, try to fix some, to iron out some kinks, to scrub off some rust and just to try and establish something. And one thing that he clearly was focused on trying to establish today was the deep ball, and Boise State tried quite a few deep passes. They weren't effective with all of them. Bowens and Shakir, I think, were the two ones that actually were able to get it. But trying to get that deep ball established, which has been an issue for Boise State, and it's something Tim Plow said he wants to work on, and get that running game working, especially the inside running game, which is something that he was really focused on today, much to maybe the disappointment of Boise State fans, because when Boise State goes to that inside running game, most of the time it kills the drive. So Boise State will have, I have written down here, hiccups on offense. I mean, they'll be playing great, it'll be in a rhythm, maybe a creative play call to Shakir doing a wildcat snap, and running the ball, or they'll be having some creative passing plays here and there, and then Boise State will get the hiccups, and it will completely throw off the rhythm of their drive because they will just run the ball up the middle like 3 straight times, whether it's in the red zone or on their opponent's side of the 50. They usually wait till they're on their opponent's side to start messing around with this, and then they'll run the ball up the middle 3 straight times and then punt the ball. And it's incredibly frustrating, and I don't know why Boise State keeps trying to do it. I understand why they tried to do it today against New Mexico, where they didn't need. I would like to believe that if Boise State had been down or this had been a close game, they would have been able to be creative on offense and pull out all the stops and win this game. So I am going to give Tim Plow the credit of the doubt. I'm going to give him grace. It's Thanksgiving, so let's give some grace to people. I'm going to give him grace. I'm giving him the credit of the doubt here on this one, that he was intentionally trying to establish something and knew what he was doing. I think that at this point in the season, with the experience that he's gained, he's shown the capability to be very, very creative in his play calling. Early in the season, he had that creativity, but he also didn't necessarily have the awareness, and he did intentionally, but unaware, but intentionally call plays that destroyed drives. I don't think he is that play caller anymore. I think he has developed and grown up at this point in the season where he has the awareness not to do that, where he has the awareness to keep his offense rolling, and we've seen that, especially in Fresno State game. I think that the San Diego State game will see a different Tim Plow with his team out there. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. But yeah, Boise State definitely, kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit on some of these drives trying to establish the run game. But that run game was pretty effective in between. 234. I spilled water on my paper right before I did this. So I think that says 234. Yeah, 234 yards rushing today. Halani had 114 yards rushing. It's his third 100-yard rushing performance. So hat trick on the season with 3 100-yard rushing games back to back to back. Prior to last week, Halani in his entire career, and this really shows what the injury bug has done to him, but in his entire career, he had never had back-to-back 100-yard rushing performances. He'd gotten close, but he'd never had back-to-back 100-yard rushing performances. Well, now he has 3 100-yard rushing games in a row. I'm not going to say, because there were a lot of issues early on in the season, I'm not going to say that if Halani had been healthy the whole year, that Boise State would be sitting undefeated right now. I'm not going to say that. I mean, there were a lot of close games that you wonder if a player of his ability may have been able to shift some of the focus and maybe win some of those games. But I do think the record overall would be different, or maybe the performances in those games would be different. So again, I'm not going to play, I'm not going to play time God here and say that Boise State would be sitting here undefeated and potentially in there for the playoffs. I'm not going to say that necessarily if Halani had been 100%, because I think there were a lot of other issues going on. But the fact that he is healthy now, the fact that he's playing with so much energy and momentum, and the fact that I think he's definitely coming back next season, considering that he is getting off to such a late start, and it would really do him no favors to try and go to the draft now. I mean, if he went to the draft now, I think he'd probably be looking at a maybe third-round pick if they were looking at all of his tapes and not taking into account how injured he's been. But so I think he's definitely coming back next year. So the fact that we might be what he can bring when we're talking about looking at the future with Helani next season, a fully healthy Helani coming back, and whoever is at quarterback for Boise State, that is an incredibly bright future for me, because Helani down the stretch here, these last 3 games when he's been 100%, has been incredible. I mean, he's beautiful to watch out there. And I mean that. I mean, you just look in awe. The moves that he makes, a healthy 100% Helani, the moves that he makes out there, the juke moves there was one play where he ran it up the middle, made a cut outside, made another cut outside, and turned on the speed right away to run all the way around. So he juked out the defensive lineman, he juked out the defensive tackle and the defensive end, and then he runs around the linebacker and outruns the cornerback. The safety had to come get him. I mean, that is incredible. That is why Helani, if he'd been healthy this whole time coming into his junior season here, I mean, he'd be looking at maybe cracking some of those record books. We'd be looking at Helani on the same way that we look at Doug Martin or Jay Ajayi. And I think a lot of us look at him in that way because we know he has that talent and that capability, but he just hasn't established himself because of his injuries. So he is that level of running back. He is that Boise State elite, great running back that Boise State has always had. He's that guy. And if he'd been healthy this season, he would definitely have maintained, and if he'd been healthy last season, honestly, he would have gotten that 1,000-yard rusher mark. And if he comes back next year, he's definitely getting it. So that is an incredible job by Helani being able to establish that running game. Boise State, a completely different team. It's not necessarily that the O-line is blocking that much better because he's getting hit in the backfield, but he is avoiding those tackles. He's powering through those tackles, and Boise State is a completely different team with Helani out there. But it wasn't just Helani. Van Buren also had a great game, powering through on 4th down there at the goal line, was able to power through and get that first down for Boise State. I believe Boise State still ended up having to kick a field goal on that first drive there. But Boise State, Van Buren coming in, the senior night on that first drive, Boise State trying to establish something, powers through and gets that first down. So it wasn't on the goal line, but just outside the red, or just inside the red zone there. So Van Buren had a nice Crow. They're using Crow more and more and more, and I love that. I absolutely love Crow. He is one of my favorite players on the team. With Van Buren out of there at the end of the season, I think that Crow is going to be the Van Buren for Boise State. Does he have the elusiveness of Helani? No. Does he have the top-end speed of Helani? No. But what he does bring to the table is incredible power. And Boise State needs that. They need a complementary back who can come in the red zone, who can come in on the short yardage plays and give you that power option. I think that's why we're seeing Crow used more and more and more, is that Boise State is starting to look at this guy as someone they want to have some tape on so that they can evaluate him coming into offseason going into next year, because he's going to be one of those backs that Boise State looks to carry this team in key situations. So that was great to see his performance today. Of course, like I said, Helani leading it all, but for rushers, but Shakir had an amazing game. While we're talking about key performances, the senior Shaquille Shakir here, 7 receptions for 116 yards, also had a rush, the Wildcat rush there for 33 yards, also had a touchdown, the only offensive passing touchdown that Boise State had on a absolutely beautiful first half play there, right towards the end of the first half. Absolutely beautiful touchdown pass where Boise State faked right, and then Bachmeier spun around to the left, hit a wide open Shakir perfectly right in stride. Was a beautiful pass. And like I said, that's also one of the reasons I'm giving Tim Powell the benefit of the doubt here, because that he called that play. Boise State had that play. When they needed to score and they needed to prove they could and get some momentum going to half, they were able to do it. So I think that if Boise State had been in a situation where this had been a back and forth game, they would have been able to score and been able to win this game. But I think, like I said, keeping the cards close to the chest on this one. But incredible play by Khalil Shakir. At one point in the first half, he had Boise State, and I tweeted it out, and I apologize because I didn't write it down. It's screenshotted on my phone right now, but I'd have to use it. So I'm going to have to try and remember here from memory. I think Boise State had like Boise State had like 180 yards of offense or something like that in the first half, somewhere in that number there. And Khalil Shakir had, by himself, at that point, had like 100-something yards. It was a really, really crazy stat where Khalil Shakir was sitting there with 50% of the offensive yards all by himself, right there in the first half. So I think it was like 100. He had like 114 yards or something like that. I shouldn't have brought it up because I don't have the exact number. The main point here is that Khalil Shakir had a great performance. Out of the 427 yards that Boise State had this game, he had 116 receiving, and then he also had a 33 yards rushing on top of that. So 149 yards total for Khalil Shakir out of the 427, well over a fourth there of Boise State's total yards on the game. That's why a fully healthy Khalil Shakir and a fully healthy running George Holani, Boise State is a completely different team. So great performance overall by these key players. Not necessarily great performance overall by the offense. Like I said, that's C+ because, 3 out of 11 on third downs, 10 drives, 2 touchdowns. We want to talk to that a little bit. But overall, Boise State here had a great defensive performance, a great special teams performance, and they were able to get those points and they put up those big plays when they needed to offensively. I don't think Boise State fans need to worry right now coming to this game against San Diego State. Boise State is coming in a good momentum, a good clip here, coming off of they're coming with a hot defense, which is great, a special teams they can rely on, an offense that hadn't revealed too much, and maybe even though they did hurt themselves on a lot of those inside runs and weren't able necessarily to establish that inside running game, maybe we're able to work some things out and figure whatever Tim Plow was trying to push at. I hope that he was able to get the tape that he needed to fix those issues, whatever they were, going into that San Diego State game. I'm not going to make a call on that game in this video. That's a completely different video. I will be doing a preview of that game. I cannot wait. I'm incredibly excited. It's a Friday game right after Thanksgiving for Boise State. So an incredible matchup. I cannot wait. I will do a preview. I'll give you my predictions. I'm not going to give that right now, but I will tell you going into that game, I am much more hopeful now than I was before this 5-1 stretch for Boise State going into that final matchup for San Diego State. I said that this game could be a yard marker for Boise State to find out where they are, because Boise State teams of the past coming into a game like this would destroy New Mexico teams, would destroy teams of this level. Now, we might not have seen that offensively, but special teams and defense absolutely did. This defense, somehow, one of the weakest units at the beginning of the year, one of the weakest units last season, has somehow turned into one of the key strengths of this team, and that it's miraculous is what it is. That can only be accredited to this coaching staff and the incredible job that they've done. This Boise State defense they are not quite there. I will say that they're not quite there, but they are really, really darn close to being at the same level as those elite Boise State defenses of years past. And I cannot wait to see what they're able to do with a full year of Andy Avalos as the head coach with this program, a full year under his belt, what he's able to develop this team into coming into next season. Offense, they've got work to do. But the defense and the special teams, those are your bedrocks. If you have those two down, you can develop the fluff, which offense, honestly, they're the fireworks. They're the fluff. They're what everybody sees. You can put the shrubbery over the ground, the bedrock there. You can develop that as long as you have those two to anchor you. If you have great defense and great special teams, even your offense isn't 100%, you're gonna win. You're gonna win the games that you need to, and you're gonna make some key performances here. So Boise State's future is incredibly bright. Like I said, Tim Plow, I think that this offense is in good hands once he's gotten that experience and awareness that he's starting to get. But the defense, special teams, performances like this today, I think are not going to be a rare thing in the Andy Avalos era. They have been rare in the past seasons, haven't had these dominant performances or consistent performances throughout. But I think that this is going to become a routine pattern for Boise State moving forward the next few years and into the future beyond that with Andy Avalos and his coaching staff. All right. So, 3 keys to the game here. 3 keys to the game. How did Boise State perform? And this is also where we're going to talk about that path to the Mountain West Championship. So, first off, and this is not going to be, besides that one key talking about the Mountain West Championship game, the other 2 keys are not going to be very long. First one here, don't overlook. I don't think that Boise State was overlooking New Mexico at all in this one. Defense came out dominant. Special teams played inspired, absolutely, and they did not overlook at all. In fact, they seemed to practice specifically for something that New Mexico was doing to go out and capitalize on that key issue. So no overlooking at all by special teams and defense. And then the offense, I'm going to say that they probably would have stepped up if they had to. That's why I'm not giving them an A+ on this one, because obviously it wasn't a great offensive performance, but I'd like to say that they would have stepped up if they have to. So overall, solid A here for don't overlook. I'm going to go to my third key, because the second key is the one that we're going to look at, this Mountain West issue. So third key here, open up the full playbook, C+. Boise State obviously wasn't doing that today. A lot of long balls or long passing attempts or long breaking routes, slow to go to the dump off receiver, not a lot of short passing options for Bachmeier out here. So I think Boise State really trying to establish something, and a lot of runs, a lot of inside runs, like I said, trying to work things out. So that's a C+ overall, but it didn't end up hurting Boise State in the end in this one. All right, so this is the issue here. Shut out the outside noise. First off, I'm going to give that an A+, because Boise State had some things happen that could have demotivated them in this one. I mean, Air Force beat Nevada out of nowhere. I mean, they weren't supposed to beat Nevada. Nevada, the better team, by all accounts, coming to that one. Air Force in an overtime victory beats Nevada. That could have been demoralizing. That could have led Boise State to potentially come out. We've seen it in the past seasons. We could have come out here and not perform the way that they needed to, because that chance of going to the Mountain West Championship got slimmer after that loss after that Air Force victory. But Boise State didn't do that. They came out, they handled themselves, solid A+. So no indications that the outside factors were impacting this game. So now that we've talked about that, that opens up the conversation here to what is Boise State looking toward going through the rest of the season? What does that San Diego State game, what implications does that game carry with it? Well, here we are. Right now, in the Mountain Division, Boise State, Air Force, and Utah State, if all three of them win out, and that's a big if for Boise State, because that San Diego State game is tough. Not such a big if for Air Force and Utah State, but it is a big if for Boise State. So if all three of them win out, then there will be a three-way tie where all of them have a 6-2 Mountain West record, and then Boise State is sitting here with an 8-4 record overall, Air Force has a 9-3 record overall, and Utah State has a 9-3 record overall. Now, if this is the scenario for each of these teams to get in, no complications, to eliminate the tie. Going top to bottom, Boise State. If Air Force loses next week to UNLV, then Boise State wins. They have the tiebreaker against Utah State. They get in. No three-way tie. Boise State is into the Mountain West Championship game, assuming they win their game against San Diego State. For Air Force, even if Boise State wins, as long as Utah State loses, Air Force gets in. They own the tiebreaker against Boise State. So even if Boise State pulls off what would be an upset against San Diego State, as long as Utah State loses to New Mexico, Air Force gets in. No holds barred. For Utah State right now, because they are at this top between them and Air Force, they own the tiebreaker. If Boise loses to San Diego State and Utah State wins their game against New Mexico, then they get in to the Mountain West Championship, no hold barred. All right, so what happens if all three of these teams win out and there's a three-way tie? So the way that, it is a very complicated breakdown. There's a breakdown on Wikipedia that I'm not sure is 100% accurate. There's a breakdown from an article last year written by the Mountain West Connection that broke down the different scenarios, because there was a setup there that there was going to be a three-way tie, and then it didn't end up happening. But there was a setup there that there was going to be a three-way tie. So it is a very complicated factor. But the best that I can tell, and I might be wrong, if someone has 100% proof to negate me on this, put it in the comments, absolutely. But as far as I can tell, the way that it breaks down is, first off, head-to-head. I'm 100% sure on that one. I know that one's the first is head-to-head. So assuming that it's just two teams, the head-to-head winner gets it. Well, in this case, it isn't head-to-head. Boise State beat Utah State beat Air Force beat Boise State. So we're in a cycle. All right, so if it's not head-to-head, the next one it goes to is the CFP poll. So not the AP poll, not the coaches poll, the CFP, the College Football Playoff poll. Whoever is the highest ranked team in that gets the nod. That is the tiebreaker. They get to be the Mountain Division rep in the Mountain West Championship. Well, if Boise State, none of these teams are going to get into. I mean, a super slim chance. I mean, if Boise State goes in and just demolishes San Diego State, just crushes them, BYU wins their last games, Oklahoma State wins their last games, so you got those win-loss record, the teams they've beaten and lost to, they are doing well. Boise State goes in and just demolishes San Diego State. There is a slim chance that Boise State could jump into the top 25. I mean, the committee has already put 4 loss teams into the top 25. I mean, they put a Wisconsin team that I think at that time had 3 or 4 losses, and they put another team that I completely disagreed with, but I've forgotten. It's on my, I have the ranking sheet right. So the committee put so it wasn't 4 losses, that time it was 3 losses. So they put a 3-loss Wisconsin team in, and they also put a 3-loss Mississippi State. So a 5-3 Mississippi State and a 5-3 Wisconsin. And I haven't checked the records of all the teams in the playoff rankings because frankly it hasn't impacted Boise State, so I haven't cared so much about the rankings this year. But it is not out of the conceivable imagination, especially with this committee that is very pro-Mountain. I mean, there's no East Coast bias in this committee. They are putting Mountain West teams where they deserve to be based on their ranking as the best conference in the group of 5, definitely this year, and based on the record of the teams they've played. I mean, Boise State, you look at the teams they've lost to, they lost to UCF. But that was a different UCF team at the beginning of the year. They lost to number 9 Oklahoma State, Air Force, and Nevada. But they have wins. If they win out, they'll have wins against number 14 BYU, number 23 Fresno State, and number 19 San Diego State. I mean, that's 3 top 25 wins. And, 3 very close losses. All 4 of Boise State's losses have been by 23 points. You've heard me say that multiple times. That number 9 Oklahoma State loss was by 1 point. So it is not outside of the realm of the conceivable imagination that Boise State could jump into the top 25 with a win against San Diego State, which would be it. Boise State would be the representative for the Mountain Division. Assuming that there are no Mountain Division teams in the CFP rankings, then, and this is where it gets fuzzy, I'm pretty sure at this point it goes to the computer rankings. So I think that they're using a method that it's like a combination of the BCS ranking system, that system is still running and generating and spitting out teams, BCS system and some other factors in that. And then if that isn't conclusive, then it goes to win percentage against like teams, whatever that means. And then there's a bunch of other sub-factors on it. Honestly, once we get outside of the head-to-head in the CFP, I start getting really confused, and I'm not the 100% expert on that. But from what people are saying, and the announcers were saying it today, a 3-way tie, most likely, and I think some of them said, one of them said definitely, and one of them said most likely, but I'm going to say most likely favors Boise State right now. And again, this is completely up in the air. Once you get to that 3-way tie scenario and no one's in the CFP rankings, I wouldn't be surprised to see any of these teams get spat out the other end as the Mountain Division rep. And I think it's incredible. It's great that Boise State is at this point in the season, considering how they started, that 2-3 overall record, and some very disappointing losses, and honestly some very disappointing performances overall. The fact that Boise State is sitting here at the end of the season with a shot at going to the Mountain West Championship game and looking at being even just being in a 3-way tie for that Mountain Division, Mountain West Mountain Division title is incredible. I don't think anybody. I mean, there's a point where a lot of people, not me, but a lot of people were saying there's a chance Boise State doesn't get to a bowl game, and now here they are talking about being a team that could go out and compete in the Mountain West Championship game. That is incredible. We should all be thankful, with Thanksgiving right around the corner, we should all be thankful that Boise State is in that position here at the end of the season. And the future, as I've said multiple times, I should just get a record. I should play it. Just click the button. The future is incredibly bright. The future for Boise State is incredibly bright. The fact that they've been able to turn things around so quickly shows that this coaching staff knows what they're doing, is putting Boise State in the right track for success. But yes, that's what we look at here, a 3-way tie. Boise State would have the overall technically worst record, but they'd have the best wins. And also technically the best losses, honestly. Air Force, really their only quality wins is against Boise, which is a quality win, and Nevada, that was a good win. Then they have lost against Utah State, San Diego State, and Army. And then Utah State, they have a win against Washington State, but that's really their only good win. And they also beat Air Force, so I guess that's a good win too. So Air Force and Washington State, but then they have losses to Boise State, BYU, and then most impacting than what started off this whole discussion is they lost to Wyoming today, which was incredible. First off, Yes, I called that, by the way. I know not a lot of people, you should, but I know a lot of people don't watch my top 10 games of the week, but right here, I called Wyoming. Oh, you can't see it on the thing. Still might not be able to see it. But that black circle, that's me circling Wyoming to win against Utah State today. And they went out and they crushed them. I saw something in that Boise State game, the defensive performance, and I saw a spark out of that quarterback who had an amazing game today against Utah State. That true freshman Wyoming quarterback that they have out there, who's 6'5", and I saw a spark against Boise State, who was a great defense. And I said, you know what? I think that they have a shot against Utah State, especially if they play defensively like they did. I think that they're going to give their offensive chances to win that game, and they did it. So I just want to, kind of real quick. There we go. Because that was incredible that Wyoming actually made this discussion relevant. But that's the key one there, that loss to Wyoming. So it really is, once you get down to this three-way tie situation and there's no CFP ranking, it's a real cluster here. So I don't know which way it's going to go, and I'm not going to necessarily give the prediction here, but all signs are pointing, most signs are pointing towards it favoring Boise State. So Boise State fans, this is a big game next week against San Diego State. I can't wait. I know you're excited. I'm pumped. Thank you for watching this video. I'm looking so forward. Yeah, forgetting how to speak here towards the end. I cannot wait to make the preview for the Boise State versus San Diego State game. Probably going to be the most exciting video I get to make for the entire year. Like I said, at the beginning of the season, what's Boise State playing for this year? And that list has gone down as there's certain losses have happened. But number one, they're playing for Mountain West Championship game. That's still on the line. Number two, they're playing for the future. They're establishing themselves to have a good start for next year. So not just establishing this coaching staff and this team, but honestly establishing Boise State to have a hot start or a hot finish to this season, so that they maybe get into the discussion to being into those preseason polls, get eyes on them. All of those things matter to be able to for what your end ceiling can be. What your hype is at the beginning of the year is what impacts what you're going to be able to achieve at the end of the year. It's unfair, but honestly it does. So that's a second thing. But the third thing, and most importantly, revenge. Revenge. Boise State is on the revenge tour, going through. Not all the revenge tour stops have worked out for Boise State, but they are on the revenge tour in knocking off teams that beat them the last time that they played. Boise State has already beaten BYU and Fresno State, and the last stop on the revenge tour, because Oklahoma State didn't end up going Boise's way, but the last stop on the revenge tour, all aboard, is to go knock off San Diego State, who beat Boise State the last time that the Broncos played them. So last stop on the revenge tour could be a stepping stone to the Mountain West Championship game. I can't wait. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you're doing Bronco Nation updates if you're not already a member. And as always, go Big Blue!